All right, let's dive right in. We're going to unpack a story that's thousands of years old, a story about power, secrets, and, well, catastrophic failure. And you'll see how it perfectly explains a critical vulnerability that so many of us face right now, especially in the digital world. It all boils down to one single hidden weakness. So let me just ask you this straight up. Is the authority you have, your credibility, your expertise, is it a verifiable fact, or is it really just a performance? A performance that completely depends on something nobody else can see.
Because that question right there, it brings us to our main idea today, the single undisclosed dependency. It's a fancy term for a simple, terrifying concept. It's when your entire system of authority, everything you've built, rests on one single secret. A secret that, if it ever gets out, brings the whole house of cards crashing down. Now, to really get this, there is no better case study than the story of Samson. For 20 years, this guy was the most powerful man around, basically an unstoppable force. But all that strength, it had a secret. You see, Samson's power was totally unique. He was set apart before he was even born as a Nazirite, someone dedicated to God. And this came with a very specific rule, a covenant condition. His hair could never, ever be cut. Now, the important thing to understand is that the hair wasn't the source of his strength, not like a magic charm. It was the visible sign that his promise, his covenant with God, was still intact. Break the sign, and you break the covenant. Simple as that.
And for 2 decades, this system worked like a charm. 20 years of absolute dominance. His enemies, the Philistines, they couldn't touch him. His authority was unquestioned.
But every single point of failure has an exploit. And in Samson's story, her name was Delilah. The Philistine rulers went to her with a proposal. Find the one secret that holds all his power together.
And just look at the stakes here. I mean, to put this in perspective, a priest back then might earn about 10 shekels a year. Delilah was offered 5,500 shekels. This wasn't just a bribe, okay? This was a your great-grandkids will never have to work kind of fortune. The price for his one secret was astronomical, and the pressure was definitely on. So, Delilah got to work. And this wasn't just one conversation. No. This was a relentless campaign of pressure, designed specifically to wear him down and expose that single dependency. At first, Samson thinks he can play this game, manage the threat. So he gives her a lie, a little bit of misdirection, to keep her happy without giving up the real secret. Just tie me up with some fresh bowstrings, he says. Of course, it was a total failure. He snapped the bowstrings like they were sewing thread. Now, this is the really crucial part. At this exact moment, he knows exactly what she's up to. The Philistines were literally hiding in the next room. He saw her plan plain as day. And yet, he stayed. So Delilah calls him out, "You lied to me," and he just gives her another false answer. This time, he says to use new ropes. The pattern is already forming. He's fully aware of the danger, but he's arrogant. He thinks he can control it. And again, he broke free like it was nothing. He tried a third lie after this, something about weaving his hair into a loom, and that failed too. His whole strategy of trying to manage the disclosure was falling apart, fast.
And this line from the text, it's brilliant. It shows us exactly why he finally caved. He didn't give in because she tricked him or because he was persuaded by some clever argument. He gave in because the pressure was so constant, so relentless, that he was just, as it says, tired to death. The emotional cost of keeping the secret finally became greater than the risk of just giving it up.
So he told her everything. The whole story about being a Nazirite, about the covenant, about the rule with the razor. And just like that, the one secret that his entire identity, his entire power rested on, it was out in the open.
This right here, this is the most critical moment in the entire story. After Delilah has his hair cut, she screams, "The Philistines are upon you." And Samson wakes up, thinking it's just business as usual. He assumes the power he's always had is just there, ready to go. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. He had no warning light, no audit protocol. He just assumed everything was fine. And in that one moment of ignorance, his 20-year reign of dominance was over. The single point of failure had been exploited, and he was literally the last to know. Whew, Samson's story is an incredible cautionary tale, right? But it also points us toward a modern solution. To avoid his fate, we have to build our authority in a fundamentally different way.
And this is where the concept of the authority footprint comes in. It's a whole new way of thinking about credibility, one designed from the ground up to eliminate that single point of failure.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. On one side, you have Samson's authority, a single, secret thing he had to hide. But on the other, you have the authority footprint, which is the exact opposite. It's not built on one thing you have to keep hidden. It's built on many things that you can proudly, publicly prove. So instead of one secret, your authority comes from a whole network of public signals that anyone can check. We're talking about things like your official credentials, your published work that proves you know your stuff, and consistent information about you or your business that shows up everywhere online. All these little proofs link back to one central trusted source. With a system like this, there is no single strand of hair to cut.
And this brings Samson's story right into our world. That moment he wakes up and doesn't know his strength is gone, that is the modern-day business that doesn't realize its online listings are a mess, its data is out of sync, or its digital record has been compromised without anyone noticing. The performance might continue for a while, but the underlying authority, it's already vanished.
But the story doesn't actually end with Samson's capture. There's a final, really powerful chapter about restoration, and it holds one last lesson for us.
So after he's captured and blinded, Samson is sent to prison to grind grain like an animal. But then, the text gives us this quiet, incredible little detail. The hair on his head began to grow again. In the darkness and humiliation of that prison, his covenant condition was slowly, silently being restored.
And when the Philistines finally brought him out to their temple to be mocked, his strength had returned. In one final epic act, he pushed on the pillars and brought the entire temple down on himself and everyone else. The text says he killed more in his death than in his entire life. That final covenant-restored act had more impact than all 20 years of his performance. And that brings us right back to you. The story of Samson is a timeless warning. It forces us to ask a tough question. Where is the one secret, the single point of failure in your system? What's the one thing that if it were exposed would cause everything you've built to collapse? Find it before somebody else does.